Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 10. I can't believe we are at 10 episodes already, and on the day that this episode will be releasing, it is also my 30th birthday. So that's really exciting. I really wanted to have this podcast released before my birthday. It's a funny story. I knew I needed to do the podcast this year and start getting what I was experiencing out into the world. And in March, I told myself that the podcast would be released April 1st, and then it was May 1st, and June 1st, and for sure July 1st. And I eventually got it out by the middle of August. So I'm definitely happy that by my 30th birthday, I'm already at episode 10. So thank you for listening and for joining me on my journey. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review. And let's jump right into this episode. So in our timeline, it is mid-October 2018, and there was still so much happening. So besides all of the episodes that I've talked about so far, I was still having a lot of Reiki appointments at this time, and a lot of things were happening in these appointments. I was still having weird things happen, small things happen. When I was out with friends, small things were happening, and I just started to know certain things. My sense of knowing was really growing. So with all of this happening, I was still trying to learn as much as I could about mediumship development, psychic, Reiki, energy work. So any kind of information that I could get my hands on, I was trying to. So I was reading books, watching YouTube videos, researching, trying to find people in the area who were similar to me, trying to research other mediums. I was watching mediumship shows, trying to see what it was like when other people did readings, if that was similar to me. Because I still hadn't really, accepted what was happening. So the biggest theme up until this point was that every experience that I have had been random. It wasn't expected, it wasn't asked for, and even if people were coming for Reiki, it would happen, but it was still through Reiki. So I had never had anything where the typical, when you think of a mediumship reading, someone come into a room, sit in a chair, and I just start talking to people that have passed away in their life. So I decided that before I left to Banff and I moved away, I needed to run a test. So I thought to myself, this has all been so random and so uncontrolled that I need to create a controlled environment and test it so that I know what's going on. After doing all the research and looking up what I should do, I decided that I was going to do a group reading. So I decided that I would invite all of my close friends, and I would try to select friends that, haven't had an experience with me yet, so that it's a fresh slate. So for example, I didn't want Tara to come because I've already talked to her grandpa, and I didn't want certain people to come who I've already had an experience with them. I wanted someone who knew about what was going on, but they hadn't directly had an experience with me yet. And I also wanted to do this before I left because I wanted it to be with people who understood where I was coming from, who supported me, who were going to be very gentle with me, and who were completely ready that if they all showed up and absolutely nothing happened, they wouldn't make fun of me, there would be no judgment. These were my friends, I trusted them, they trusted me, and I wanted this to happen before I left. So I looked at my calendar and I tried to see when in the next week and a half could this happen, because I was moving across the country. I had to drive to where my family is from to go say goodbye to everybody. I had to finish work. I had to do so many things. I looked at my calendar and the only available day that I had before I left was a Thursday. So I had to plan it very quickly. So I picked the day. I wanted it to be from 7 to 9 p.m. And then I had to put a call out to my friends. So I started messaging people on Facebook, sending them text messages, thinking about people who would be interested in something like this and supportive of something like this, because I wanted people to come who were interested and who had someone to talk to, like who would have an intention, but also people who would be very understanding if nothing happened. That was my biggest fear, that I would have these people show up, we'd all sit in a circle, just like in TV, and nothing would happen and I would have nothing to say. So when I was thinking about this plan, I wanted to have, between 4 and 6 people. Even if it was 3, that would be okay. So I started to send my friends some feeler texts, some Facebook messages to see who would be interested in coming. Before I knew it, within 2 days, I had 8 of my friends confirm. And I really gave them the warning before, and I said, hey guys, this is my plan. I want you to all come over. We're going to sit in a circle. I'm going to try to do a group reading. I don't want to know anything in advance. And if nothing happens, I'm sorry, but you guys all kind of know what's been happening to me. So I just really need to test this with people that I trust before I move across the country. And I'm going to have to continue to deal with this, but with friends around me who don't know what's going on. So the date was planned. It was going to be Thursday night, 7 to 9 p.m. All of my attendees were confirmed. I had 8 people that were going to come, and this was really happening. So I knew everyone that was going to be attending, except for my one friend had asked to bring her cousin. And the only person that was coming that also had already had an experience with me was Tori. So Tori really wanted to come again in case there was any other chance of connecting with her dad. And I said, that's no problem. She was so supportive and she's so amazing. Absolutely, I would want her there. The event came very quickly, and for the 4 or 5 days before I had this planned, I became so nervous, so anxious. I wasn't sleeping at night. I had a pit in my stomach constantly, and I just wanted to cancel the event so badly. I was like, this is just too much. This is a bad idea. I can't be having these panic attacks. I literally couldn't get it off my mind with everything else that I had going on with trying to move and organize things. And what would my friends think if nothing happened? What if they all show up and there's nothing? I need to cancel this event. So in my mind, this could not move forward. So I was listening to this podcast 3 days before the event, and there was a sentence that she said in the podcast. I still remember it stuck out to me so strongly. And she said that when your body is uncomfortable, it will do anything in its power to get you to stop and to hold you back. And it's a protection device that your body does. And this podcast was talking about how if you can push through that uncomfortableness, if you can push through and do the things that are uncomfortable for you, or that your body is resisting, this is going to be where the needle moves. These are the things that you need to do. Your body is just trying to protect you from the unknown. And I was thinking okay, this is the biggest, craziest thing I've ever done with this. My body is definitely trying to protect me. I need to move forward with it. But my biggest fear for this event, something that I just couldn't get off my mind, was that what if all these people came and nothing happened? We all sat in this circle and nobody came through. I had no messages. What if it doesn't work on demand? What if it just happens whenever it wants? What if I don't know how to control it? What if this gift is just going to have a mind of its own and just come when I'm at work or when I'm driving, and not really work when I have people at my house sitting in a circle ready to receive messages? So even though I had this sentence kind of replaying to me back in my head, I still had this feeling that I wanted to cancel the event. And I remember going to work with this pit in my stomach, just thinking, I need to cancel it. I need to not move forward with this. This is a bad idea. Why did I think this was a good idea? Why did I want to do this? Why am I testing this so early? And the girls at work really tried to calm me down, but I was just so in my mind about it. My biggest fear was, and still is, what if nothing happens? How embarrassing would that be? So it was 2 days before the event, and I'm constantly having these feelings. I'm constantly worried about it. And I start to think about how I would want the messages to be received. So I think, okay, so if there are going to be 8 people coming, what if all 8 people want to talk at once? Well, that can't work. Like, what if they all have people who want to talk to them all at once? So I'm going to have to set it up where maybe I'll ask the spirits to kind of stand in a line, and one at a time I'll say what their message is and what they need to say. So I was kind of thinking about how I would organize this in my mind and about who would be the people that would be standing in the line and how I would say each of their messages one at a time. So it's 2 days before the event, and I'm kind of thinking this in my head, and then I start to get information. It was almost like if I was imagining a line, there was no one in the line, but then all of a sudden people started to walk into this line in my mind's eye. Before the event even happened, 2 days before, I got some messages. So the first message was one of my friends that were coming. It was her dad. And he kind of presented himself and he gave me a little piece of information. So I wrote that down and I was like, okay, this is good. I'll have something to start with. Like at least I can start with her dad and then I can just keep going because maybe like once I'm on, I'll be rolling. And then the second piece of information was this man, and I didn't know who he was. He was a middle-aged man. He was wearing a black jacket and a black shirt, and I knew that he was for my friend's cousin. So I wrote that down, and I wrote down he gave me one piece of information. So now I start to feel a lot better about the event. I'm thinking, okay, I already have 2 people that I can start with, and I know that I can start with this little bit of information that they already gave me, and then maybe I can keep talking. And once I'm already talking, maybe it will flow and like the lineup will grow. So, the first person that's in line will talk and then they'll move out of the line. And the next person will talk and then they'll move out of the line. And hopefully everybody can get a message. At that point, even if one person received a message, I was happy because that was kind of the point of the whole test was, can I do this on demand? So before the event happened, I was also thinking, do I want people to write down who they want to talk to and put it in their pocket so that they have an intention, or so that they're thinking about someone who they want to connect with? Or maybe I have them write it down and put it in a jar that I put by the door. And then I was like, no, because what if I see the jar? What if I see the paper? I was like, I feel like if I just tell people before they come, hey, think about someone who you would like to connect with. Like, have it in your mind. Hey, I would like to talk to my grandpa. Hey, I would like to talk to my friend. So that you at least can be expecting someone. And then when I ask you afterwards, you can tell me how to go. So it's the day of the event. And I'm nervous, but I had 4 people coming for Reiki that day. So it was very busy before the event. And then right before all my friends were coming over, I had to set up a big circle in my living room. I made popcorn. I set up a tea station. I put snacks out and nuts, and I put tissues because from what I experienced, everybody cries when these things happen. And I was getting all ready. So I had 8 friends coming over, and around 6:45, the doorbell starts ringing. So my first friend comes. I open the door. And I said, hey, I'm like, your dad's here. And she was like, what? He's here already? And I was like, yeah, he came 2 days ago. I was super nervous about the event and I started asking for information and he was the first one to come. She was like, okay. I was like, but don't tell me anything. Like, we'll talk about it after. She's like, okay. Then the next few friends came. I greet them. Everybody's coming in, getting a tea. And then my friend comes with her cousin and I open the door and I said, hey, there's a man here for you, but I don't know who he is yet, but he's been here for 2 days. She smiled. She said, okay. She's like, do you want me to tell you who he is? And I said, no, I don't want to know, but tell me later on. So one of the kind of rules that I set was that I didn't want to know any information in advance. And I asked everyone to just tell me yes or no when I was speaking. Don't lead me on. Don't feed me information. and then when I'm done talking, you can explain the story to me. Once everyone was arrived, we all had a tea or a drink, and everybody had a snack. We all sat in a circle. My plan was to give this opening speech and then to start with the two people that I already had and then to keep going. So we sat down, I kind of explained to everybody that I was really nervous and I thanked them for coming and for trusting me and for being supportive and just knowing that I had to do this before I left because they all already knew what was going on with me. I didn't have to re-explain it. And also they wouldn't make fun of me if nothing happened. So after we all sat down, I explained to the group that I had had two people already come forward because I was so nervous and I asked for some information to kind of settle my nerves. So I looked at my one friend and I said, I'm going to start with your dad because he came first and I'll share with you the information that he gave to me. So I said to her, your dad is stepping forward, but he's stepping forward kind of very cowardly and ashamed to step forward. He's almost nervous, like he shouldn't be here. He didn't want to say sorry to her, but he did want to take the blame of kind of what happened to her and what happened in their life because of him. He wanted her to know there was a very important message that because he wasn't in her life, she is better equipped to deal with life than he was. So he didn't have the right tools to deal with his life properly, which is something that he now knows. But because he wasn't in his daughter's lives, he wants her to know that kind of she's better off for it. And she asked a question to her dad. She said, is there any warnings that he has for me? Does he have anything to say to me? And I said, no, he doesn't have anything to say to you. The only thing he wants you to know is that you can handle whatever life throws at you. And he knows that you were raised so that anything that happens, you're fully prepared to deal with it. So then I turned to my friend who came with her cousin. And I said, I don't know who the man is that is for you yet, but he's stepping forward with my friend's mother. And I said, they're both on a stage. So they're like stepping into a stage and she's kind of being like, come on, it's our turn now. Like, let's go. And he's a little bit shy. I was like, would this guy be shy? And she was like, no, he wasn't shy. I said, okay. I was like, well, they're on this stage and your mom is like all ready to talk, but he's not ready to talk yet. So maybe I'll just start with your mom and see what she has to say and then come back to who this man is for you, the cousin. They said, okay. So I said, your mom wants to talk about the problem with the house. And she knows that you're going through, there's some kind of dispute or there's something going on with the house and she wants to address it. And her message to you is just settle it. Just deal with it whatever way is best for you. She said, don't make this run on and on and on and ruin your life when it doesn't need to be drawn out this way. My friend said, okay, but ask my mom, like, how? And she said, whatever you need to do, she said, I understand. She said, don't do anything in my honor because you think you need to. And I said, was your mom like a larger chested woman? I was like, when she's stepping on stage, like she's a short woman, but she kind of has big boobs. And my friend laughed and she was like, yeah, she did. She was just like me. Like we looked the same. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I was like, she's a cute little like small woman. I was like, your mom also wants to talk about a baby that was just born. Like who just had the baby boy? And she was like, yeah, one of my nephews just had a baby boy. It was just born 2 weeks ago. And I was like, okay, your mom wants to acknowledge that she knows about the kid and that she had the baby boy before it was born. So it was safe before it kind of came here. So then I turned to her cousin and I said, okay, I don't know who this man is, but he seems like very close to you and he wants to talk about your grandchildren. And she was like, yes. And then I asked her, I said, can you just tell me who this man is? Because I can't quite figure out who he is. She said, it's my husband. And I said, okay. He wants to talk about your grandchildren. Did you have a daughter? And she said, yes. And I said, does your daughter have 2 children, a boy and a girl? And she said, yes. Do the 2 grandchildren talk about seeing your husband like their grandpa? The little girl, she dreams about him and she sees him. And he wants you to know that that's really him. Like, the kids aren't joking around. The kids aren't just seeing things. The kids aren't crazy. Like, when they say that they see him, they really do. And she said, yeah, when we were driving down the street, they'll be like, look, Nana, like, there's Papa. And they'll say, he's walking down the street in that outfit he used to wear. And I'll be like, oh, yeah. And we'll drive by and both of them will see him walking down the street. But he's not walking down the street. He's been passed away for years. She said, I don't even know how they remember him. And I was like, okay, well, that's a perfect example of when she talks about him or when she tells you that she dreams about him, she really does see him, and that really is him and his soul. And I said, but you want to dream about him more. I was like, you want to see him more. I said, I feel like he has come to you a few times, but you want more from him. You want him to come in your dreams more. You want more signs from him. And he wants to tell you that you're too busy and you're not quiet enough for him to have time to come to visit you. Like, I feel like you're always busy. You're always doing this. You're always doing that. The more that you have silent time, the more that he'll be able to come and give you these messages. Does that make sense for you? And she said, yes, I really do need to take more time for myself. And knowing that he might be able to come through, maybe that will motivate me to take more time for myself. And he also wants to talk about where the gold balloons were. I feel like your daughter just opened a new space, or there was just a celebration, and where everybody was celebrating this new opening of a space, and he wants you to know that he was there, and he is very proud of her, and he's very excited for this new space. And then she said, yeah, my daughter just opened a new dance studio and we just had the opening party, and we did have gold balloons, so that's really exciting to know that he was there. And then before he left, he really just wanted to stress to the wife to spend more alone time because she needs it, and he will come visit her. So I did mention before that I burp when spirits come and go. Usually when they go, I'll kind of burp their release. So in this experience, I was having these like shorter bursts of burps when I knew the soul was leaving. And after those first 2 people came, it was just as though everybody else got into the line. So I could just rattle off the next people. For a while, it was that I was going perfectly around the circle, but then I started to jump around and deliver different messages. So the next message was for Tori. And Tori had already spoken to her dad before. But I said, your dad is here again. Like, I love this man. He's just the most well-dressed, put-together man. And she laughed. She's like, yeah, he always was. And I said, he's a little more serious this time around. He wants to talk to you about you quitting smoking. He said, the time is now. Enough is enough. You need to quit smoking. And she said, I know I've been trying, but I just can't, and I have seasons of off and on, and I said, no, your dad doesn't want to hear these excuses. He just needs you to do it. He needs you to quit smoking. And he also wants to talk about your mom's birthday that just happened. There's a really big celebration for your mom's birthday, and I did know that her mom just had a big birthday party. I believe she was turning 90 because Tori had been talking about it, but he said that he really wanted her to know that he was at the birthday party and he was there when everybody else was there. And I said, you just had a baby born in the family as well, another baby boy. And she said, yeah, my son just had a baby. And I said, okay, he also wants you to know that he had the baby before he was born as well. I'm like, that son would have been his grandchild, correct? And she said, yes, that would have been his grandchild. And I said, okay. So he wants you to know that he knows about the baby and that he kind of like was rocking the baby, same as your cousin before he was born. And Tori feels very connected with her dad, so she was kind of like, I knew he knew about the baby, and I knew that he was at mom's birthday, so it just feels really good to know that that's true. And the last thing he wanted to talk about, I said, he's really worried about you. And she said, why would he be worried about me? I said, he's worried about what's going to happen when mom isn't around anymore and you're going to be the one who is going to be taking over the family. You know, you're the oldest girl. You're going to be the one who's going to have to deal with a lot of things that mom deals with now. And she was like, yeah, I know. I've kind of been thinking about what happens. Like when mom goes, how's that going to be? It's going to be really hard on the family, and it's going to be especially really hard on me. And he said, just, start preparing for it and know that you'll have the support of your family when it does happen. So next I turned to one of my friends who we were friends from the gym. So we met from going to the gym together, and then eventually we just started hanging out and we had become good friends. So I turned and I looked at her and I said, your grandpa's here. And he's really talking about horses. He's really talking about the horses. She said, okay. And he said, at your grandma's house, he wants you to know that he's with your grandma. So I feel like if she sat on one chair, he's sitting on the other chair. And he's always with her. And he started to talk about kind of this girls' club and boys' club. I said to my friend, it's making me feel like in real life, like grandma has this like girls club, maybe they all get together on Tuesdays and they all have coffee or they all play cards or whatever. He's kind of like, now he's in the boys club in heaven because up there, I'm like, has his brother also passed away? And she was like, yes. I'm like, okay. And I feel like a few of his friends are also passed away, like husbands of the girls who would be in the girls club. And she was like, yes. I'm like, okay, it's like they're all on the other side together in this like bro club in heaven. And she kind of laughed, and I said, just wait till the end to tell me. And she said, okay. And I was like, your grandpa wants to talk about your upcoming wedding. He's so excited. He knows that you're engaged. He knows how great of a partner you have, and he just really wants to say congratulations to you. And then he wanted to talk about his wife, and he said, I need you to keep taking grandma out. He's like, even when it feels like a chore or even when you feel like you shouldn't anymore, you need to keep taking her out because it's going to keep her young. She's still very healthy, but he really appreciated, you picking her up and taking her to the horses, or you going to visit her or taking her to her friends. He said, keep doing this because she's going to stay young the more and more she continues to go out. So she was like, yes, okay, thank you. So because by this time I was kind of on a roll, I had hit 4 people out of the 8, I kind of said, all right, everybody kind of explain your stories to me at the end because I need to get this information out, because now it was just coming to me quickly and I just was on a roll. And I said, okay, explain to me afterwards what happened. I just have to get all this information off my chest before I lose it. So then I turn and I had 2 friends there that were sisters. So again, they were 2 friends that I met from the gym. And we had become friends, and through becoming friends with the one girl, I had met her sister, and we all connected, and they were both there together. So I turned and I looked at them. Actually, I should preface this story with, so before this whole event happened, I wanted to record the session, because after the session, my plan was to go back and ask people, how did they know I was talking to their loved one? Like, at what point, at what sentence, at what thing did I say where you were like, it was then I knew for sure that that was this person, or that I believed you, or that I didn't believe you, or whatever it was. So we were recording it on one of the sisters' phones. That's just an aside because it'll be important in a moment, but the phone was in front of her recording everything I was saying. So I turn to the 2 sisters and I say, your aunt is here. And it's someone on your mother's side, but it would have been someone you only met a few times, but you were close. I'm like, she didn't live in Canada. She lived in another country, and you met her a few times. And when you were with her, it wasn't like these long periods of times, but they were important. And I feel like you guys would have had this connection. And even when you left, you remembered her like she was this important person. And they said, okay, yeah, we think it's our mom's sister who would have died long ago, but when we used to go visit, we would have went and seen her. And I was like, okay. And so this aunt that lived in another country seemed to be very connected and in tune. So the two sisters' mom was very in tune and connected, and she kind of had these connections in the spiritual realm of people who did certain things. So, for example, they had this one lady that they went to when people were sick, and she would do something to make them feel better. Her mom knew this other woman who could talk to spirits. So the whole family was kind of connected on a deeper level. One of the two sisters that was there, I believe that she was kind of psychic, and she just needed to nurture her gift more. But like, we would talk about that when she came for Reiki and things like that. So I said to her, you have a special gift. And then I turned to the other sister and I said, and so does your daughter. And at the time, the daughter was waking up with night terrors, and she was asking me, why would she be screaming? Like someone was in the room screaming bloody murder. And I said, your aunt is telling me that your daughter has a special gift and she sees things. And even though she doesn't understand maybe right now, you need to talk to her like she understands. So you need to tell her that if she's seeing someone, that's okay, and she can tell you what she sees. Or you need to talk to her like an adult and tell her, ask her what's going on, ask her what she sees. I said, next time you go into her room and she's screaming and telling you someone's there, try to talk to her and be like, okay, who is there? What do you see? What do they look like? What are they telling you? I'm like, she's scared because she doesn't know what's happening, but if you talk to her like she fully understands, see if you get any more information from it. And her aunt also wanted to tell the other sister that she needs to start developing her gift because she does have something special and she needs to stop ignoring it. And while I'm talking about this, the phone rings that we were recording on. And who is it but their mom? And she goes, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, my mom is calling. She ignores the call. We find out later that when she called, the recording shut off, or we couldn't get our recording after that. So then I say, now there's another person coming through for you two, but I don't know who it is. She's a young girl. She has dirty blonde, light brown hair. She's between 19 and 21 years old. She would have died in a car crash. It was like a red car, and the other car was like a yellow or a beige car. And I was like, that's all the details that I'm getting, but I think it's for one of you two. And both the sisters are thinking and thinking. And they're like, we can't think of anyone. We can't think of anyone. And I was like, okay, like, are you sure? Young, dirty blonde hair, 19 to 21, died in a car crash. They're like, no, like, can you think of anyone? Can you think of anyone? I was like, okay, like, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So we moved on. So the only other person in the circle, one girl was left. Everyone, the 7 people had received a message. And I turned to my last friend and I looked at her and I said, okay, I'm going to try to get a message for you. And she said, okay, but I don't really have anyone to get a message from. I was just super interested and I wanted to come and see what happened. And I said, okay, but I'm just going to try. So I kind of sat in silence. I meditated. I thought about it. And nothing was happening. And then I just started the burps. And I said, I'm so sorry, I can't get anything. And she's like, that's okay. She's like, I really don't have anyone to talk to. No one close to me has died. She's like, I just really wanted to be here. And when I'm burping, I know that it's over, so I can't really control it anymore. So it's over. 7 people of the 8 people had got a message. There was still some pieces of information that didn't make sense, but for the most part, everyone kind of got some piece of information. And then I kind of went back and I asked, did these messages make sense for you? My friend's cousin said that after her husband passed, she went to a medium once every 6 months in order to connect with her husband. And that was her grieving process. But after that, she had to stop because it was like she was holding on. But ever since then, she just feels like he's not around anymore. So it was really important that I said that she needs more alone time in order to connect with him. She said that really landed with me because I've been looking for another way to connect with him without continuing to go to mediums. So it's good to know that I can do it on my own. I said, oh, okay, thank you. And she said, we definitely didn't think our grandchildren were crazy. She said, I really do believe that they see him. So I'm happy that kind of he came through to say that, hey, that is me. And then because I did know a little bit about the other friend's mom and Tori's dad, they were both just happy to hear from them. And my other friend, she said, I'm surprised my dad came through, but it's interesting that you said that he came through like a coward or ashamed because he wasn't in my life and he left when we were young. And that's something that I didn't know about her. And she said, so it's really interesting to know that now that he's reflecting on his life, his message is you were kind of better off without me and you wouldn't have been the person you are today if I was in your life. So then we got to my friend whose grandpa came through for her with the horses and the grandma and the girls club. And she said, I really wasn't expecting my grandpa to come through today. She said, I had a friend that died that was really close to me and I was hoping to hear from him. She's like, obviously I'm very happy to hear from my grandpa, but I was just thinking that he would come through. She said, I know I've mentioned to you that my grandpa was passed away. She's like, but maybe in passing, like a long time ago, because he's been passed away now for a few years, so it's not something that you would have experienced him dying or anything. But she's like, the amount of information that you told me is just too correct. She said, of course I already believed you, Steph, I trust you. But she's like, you would have never known about the girls and the boys club. She's like, my Nana actually goes to this little girls club. And she said, you wouldn't have known the information about the horses or about how we do take my grandma out and how it is kind of a burden to take her out, but we know that it's keeping her young. And she was kind of blown away. So then the two sisters said, we know the aunt that you're talking about, but we want to go and ask our mom some more information. So I said, okay, like if it doesn't make sense, that's fine. And they said, no, we were just young and we want to know like what you were talking about. So we're going to call our mom after and then talk to you after. And I said, okay. So this was about 2 hours of me talking that I have just condensed here for you in 30 minutes. And I just was happy that it was over, happy that people got messages. I was really surprised that one girl didn't get a message. And I was like, wow, like everybody got a message but her. So by this point, we're all having more snacks, more tea, and we're just chatting. So it's kind of the main event is complete and we're all talking. And the one girl who didn't get a message comes over to me and she said, Steph, I have some news to share with you, which might be why I didn't get a message today. She's like, even though I didn't have anyone I wanted to talk to, she's like, I don't want you to feel bad that I didn't get anything. She's like, I really just wanted to be here to spend time with everybody. She said, but I'm pregnant. I just found out. And I said, wow, like we all got to find out that she was pregnant at this event. And now it's just amazing because I get to see her son online because I am on the other side of the country. But I kind of still remember when I heard about the news that she was having a baby was at this event. So that's still really special. So we were chatting and then slowly people started to leave. It was almost 10 o'clock by this point. So everybody leaves and I clear the space and I drink a ton of water and I sit down. I order a pizza and I'm just relaxing, kind of soaking in the night. And my friend calls, so one of the friends of the two sisters. And they said, Steph, we came to our mom's house right away and we were asking her about this auntie. They said, we remember who she was when we used to go home and visit, when we would visit Ecuador or when we would go home for family trips. She was the auntie that we would always miss the most and, spend the most time with. They said, my mom said that she was actually killed and she was one of the aunties that had what they thought were like super normal powers. Like she had the sense of knowing. And they believe that that's what has been passed down through the family. She said, my mom knows things. This auntie knows things. She said, but we just didn't think of it at the time. We both were so overwhelmed. But as soon as we came home and we told our mom all of the descriptions that you told us, she knew right away who it was. And she said another thing that we realized, we went back to the recording and right when my mom called, the recording had shut off. So we couldn't even play my mom what you were saying because it shut off before you even started. They were like, what are the odds that our mom would call right when you were talking to us, right when it was our turn, and that the recording would shut off? And they were like, thank you so much for having us. Like tonight was amazing. We had a really great time. Like that was incredible. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Kind of, we know that it's been late. And I said, wow, like, thank you for calling. I'm glad your mom knew like all the information and was able to connect the dots for us because now this all really made sense when it didn't make sense before. And then before she left, one of the sisters was like, and that girl that you were talking about that got into a car accident, I feel like it's someone for me. She's like, I know this girl, I know her, she's in my mind, but she's connected to me through this girl that I work with. So I'm going to ask the girl that I work with if this was her. And I said, all right, but if it doesn't fit, that's fine. But if it makes sense, then yeah, maybe it is her. So fast forward, I think a week later, she did tell me that she asked the girl at her work and all the details were correct of the girl that died and of the 2 cars. So she was like, I was wondering why that girl was trying to connect with me. Like, I didn't know her personally. I just knew her through a girl I work with. And I was like, I don't know who chooses to come through, but if the information was correct, then maybe it was her. So that was it. That was the experience of when I hosted a mediumship circle and tested my abilities, tested what was happening to me, tested what information I could get. To me, it was very successful. I mean, 7 out of 8 people got a message, and there was a lot of good specific details. All of my friends had very good feedback and reactions to it, so I was very lucky that happened. And I was very happy with the outcome. So at the end of this all, after all the stress and all the worry, I was very happy that I went through with the event and that it turned out to be a good success. So again, thank you for listening to episode 10. In next week's episode 11, I am going to be talking about when I went home and told my family what was happening before I moved out west. So I had told my cousin and I had told my mom so far, but I hadn't told the rest of my family. So I was going home to kind of say goodbye before I moved, and there's a few stories of what happened while I was there. And it's very interesting because when that episode will be released, I will also be home again visiting in Ontario. So the synchronicities are very interesting. And we will see you next week. Bye.